We'd like to welcome you to today's open session of the HOA Board of Directors. I want to thank you for coming. Also want to welcome those that may be watching on Zoom today. This meeting is being recorded and broadcast live. Would like to also ask that you either put your cell phones on vibrate or close them off so that as for all of us that are here, we can conduct our business as usual. So let me just give everybody a second to do that. At this time, I'd like to ask if we have a quorum.
We have a quorum.
I think you have to push the little red button there. Okay. No. Thank you. Okay. Like to, at this time, we're going to have member comments. I believe I've got 6 of these here in front of me, and they're sort of turned in. Tom Bracken, I think I saw you here somewhere. Tom Bracken, if you would come up, and the next will be Gloria Brodsky.
Later. Hi, gentlemen and ladies. I received this letter in the mail. Received this letter in the mail telling you guys about we only have 62% now in the reserve, okay? And the reserve came out in March, and this is October. 6 months, you only got back to the people to tell them what they got. And I was on the board, which everybody knows, and I gotta say, the attorney who wrote this letter wrote a good letter, but she didn't name whose fault it was. I can tell you whose fault it is. It's a management company's fault. They're the one to give all the information to the financial committee. They're the one to give all the information in. And then you guys do all your adding and subtracting, and you said there was $431,101 not missing, but forgot to be earmarked for something for the road. But you do all the math. It's another $126,697 unaccounted for. Where is that money? It's not there. And as president, Walt, you had the obligation to tell every board member that the reserves was down. And when I called you and I found out about it, you told me that it was 67%. And I said, no, it's down to 62%. And what a coincidence. It's all the time we was going to get the pool pavilion building built. That would drove, and for $607,000. That would drove us down to under 50%. It was your obligation to tell us. And for the board who voted on this letter, I don't know who did it, but the board who voted on this letter, shame on you. These people put your trust in you guys to do the right thing. There's $126,000 over, still not accountable for, and these people put your trust in you. And I got to say one thing. Why I said this was a good letter, because all the times I went to school and I was the world's worst student, they always said, read between the lines. Well, Sue, this time I read between the lines, and you know what this letter says? That your dues are going to go up a whole bunch. And I can tell you that right now because you're down so much. But somebody did this. It didn't come from the fairy godmother, believe me. If somebody is accountable for this, and it's a shame that we have a board that will not step up to the plate for the people who voted for them, who got up and said, the board who got up and said we had so much money to build this pool pavilion, and said no dues are going to go up. Believe me, And you guys called me, I said you was liars, and you called me that I was misinformed? Is it? Long ago. Is it 4 minutes? Then shut up.
Your time went to zero a long time ago.
Well, whatever it is. But anyway, you guys should be ashamed of yourself for voting for this.
Okay, Gloria Brodsky next. After Gloria will be Keith Manley.
Sorry for the noise. Good afternoon, Board. Gloria Brodsky. I live at 24169 Via Primavera, and I just have a few comments about the refurbishing of the clubhouse exterior. The October Colony News stated the work would be underway if not completed by October. Can you give us an update? And your approved proposal from Prime Company was $79,112. Does this price include the replacement of rotted wood and beams and of rotted wood beams and the stucco? And if it's not covered, do you have an estimate for that? And when might repairs begin? Thank you.
Thank you, Gloria. Keith Manley. Next up will be Tony Harris.
Good afternoon, Board. I'm here to encourage you to look at the project of purchasing security cameras. This is a project that is long overdue, and the security cameras themselves are necessary for the protection of both the people, our residents, and the property that we have within the clubhouse. I'd like to give a couple examples about it. A tennis player fell among the chairs that were sitting outside of the tennis court and laid there for a long period of time without anyone noticing her. Security camera would have helped that by seeing her laying amongst the chairs, and the chairs were toppled over, by the way. 3 weeks ago, my car was parked in the parking lot here, and somebody came in and hit my car. They didn't even have the courtesy to write a note or leave it on the windshield to say, I hit you and call me. Maybe the security camera could have helped identify who that car was and who belonged to the car. In the past, we've had thefts within the clubhouse. Property has been taken from the clubhouse by individuals, and every time something is stolen from us within the clubhouse, that's monetary cost to us individually. Another reason to have security cameras posted both inside the clubhouse and outside the clubhouse. In summary, security cameras are not just a luxury item, but it's there for the protection of the residents and our property. And I would encourage you to put the security cameras on top of your agenda for purchasing it. We've talked about it in the past, and I'm sure there's some figures that are outdated by now, but they can be remassaged and done. I thank you for your attention, and I hope that you will seriously look at security cameras for our residents.
Thank you very much. Tony, and then next up is Sharon Bowl.
Good afternoon, thanks for the time. My name is Tony Harris. I live at 40351 Via Amapola. During COVID, the gym equipment was cleaned every hour. I'm just wondering how often it's getting cleaned now. I'd like to see sort of the in and out concept with a checklist at the door, with a sign off by the janitor that's doing it, and a date and time. I don't think that's unreasonable. And if we were getting it cleaned hourly, do we have the labor now to do it every 4 hours, every 3 hours during the day? It wouldn't seem to be unreasonable. Second point, you repaired a pilaster at the main gate some time ago. It was damaged for a long time. Finally got repaired, and now it's patched, and there's no paint on it. Can we not send a janitor out there and slap some paint on that thing and get it taken care of? It just doesn't represent us well. When you pull in our main gate and someone's coming in with a realtor, and that's the first thing they see. I'd be interested in knowing who inspects our common landscape. Is it the landscape committee? If so, is it logical that the architectural committee would inspect our buildings? And should we just implement that? Just kick that off? Just have them do a, I don't know, quarterly inspection of, for example, all these buildings? Maybe we would have caught that beam, because the beam that Gloria is talking about outside the gym is seriously rotted. I don't know who's responsible for watching that, whether it's our committees or the management company, but someone was MIA on that one. I'm just wondering how I got that far. So that's it. Thanks. I appreciate your time.
Thank you very much. Sharon Bowl.
Sharon Bowl, 23751 Corte Charmona, and I'm here to address the commandeering of the tennis courts and making them into paddle tennis courts. This is a problem at some point you will have to be addressing. You've been told that pickleball is the new sport, and there are just hordes of pickleball players just dying to get on the courts, and that's why we have to give them our tennis court to accommodate them. I would like to show you how that is not a fact. During this entire month, I've been going down to the tennis courts and the pickleball courts and paddle tennis courts to log in when people are playing. During the 21 days that we are currently in, there have been 8 days there has been a vacancy on the pickleball courts that no one was playing. This does not demonstrate that they are in need of kicking us off of tennis in order to accommodate more pickleball courts. There's only one day, Wednesday, October 13th, that there were 4 pickleball paddles in that reserved spot that would indicate that they are up next. And all 3 of the courts were in use at that time. Those people, if we had pickleball courts on the tennis courts, would then go down to play at tennis. Are you saying you're willing to pay the price to put pickleball courts on the tennis courts to accommodate 4 people? That's what you're saying if you vote to do this. Let me give you a little bit of history. The history is that one day, several months ago, that a whole bunch of people came down to play pickle, and they had to wait 1 hour, 2 hours in order to get on the court. Definitely an inefficient use of their time. When tennis had an overflow of people, we went down to the city courts to play on the city courts. There was no talk about taking over the paddle tennis courts because we had more people than them. I would like you to keep in mind that there is not a horde of pickleball players that necessitates taking over the tennis courts. Thank you for your time.
Thank you, Sharon. I don't have any more sheets, so unless there's been one that's been filled out in the back, this will conclude the time for the member comments. At this time, I'd like to introduce the board as well as our guests, and so to my right here.
I'm Del Mitchum.
I'm Glenn Saylor, the ex-treasurer.
Joanne Deacon, Director.
Walter Bowman.
Bruce Alfonso, Vice President.
Jim Nance, Treasurer.
Amy Horlock, Secretary.
I'm Ryan Jones from the Epstein Law Firm.
Sue McClintock from the Epstein Law Firm.
Jim Morgan, General Manager.
And Kimberly Evans, Office Manager and Admin to Jim.
And in the back on this side, we have other members of the staff that are in attendance today, and we thank you. At this time, I would like us to stand for the in memoriam and to stay standing for the pledge. and for the patriotic song. Let us just take a moment to think of our residents who are not with us anymore, but at the contributions that they made to our community and the joy that they brought to many of us as their neighbors. Thank you. This time we'd like to have the pledge. So if you are there, and if you'll say with me, I pledge to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. We ready with the song?
I want you to sing.
Yeah. No, I'm not singing. Yes, I understand that we're having some difficulties, and so think of your national anthem as you sit down. At this time, I'd like to find out if you're a new resident and this is the first time that you've been able to join us in the audience, would you just hold up your hand or so we can acknowledge? Oh, that's wonderful. Thank you so much. Let's give them a hand for being a part of what we are today. Thank you so very, very much. Really appreciate that so much. At this time, we have a series of announcements that we're going to go over, but I'm going to call on, for the golf course, our attorney. Let me just give you 1 second before he comes, and then when he's finished, Bruce Delfonso will have a couple of remarks, and then we'll continue with the other announcements. After the recent election, the board met. We formed a committee of residents and board. I would like for you to stand as I announce the committee. I see George Steele right here is on the committee, Darrell Hanson. On the committee is Jim Nash, Bruce Delfonso, Dell, and Joanne, and myself. So we form the golf committee. We meet every Tuesday. You're going to hear a little bit about that now, but we tried to set an agenda out there that by next September we hope and we trust that we can have a lot of this golf course issue after 21 years taken care of. I think it's very, very important before a new election that we do everything we can to clear the book and the logs of the golf course situation. Ryan Jones, if you would give us a report from your part right there, and then Bruce Delfonso.
Thank you. So as Walt indicated, I'm Ryan Jones. I've been the attorney representing the association in the golf course litigation since 2012. In 2012, the association was sued by Majestic Asset Management and Wintech, the owners and operators of the golf course. And as a precautionary measure, the board at that time decided that we needed to cross-complain against them for their failure to live up to the obligations that they had to maintain and operate the golf course to the standards that they had agreed to. Excuse me. I'm giving you this background information because many of you are new residents and probably haven't been involved. The story of the golf course goes back, as Walt said, many, many years before that, and there was a lot of distrust brewing with the owners of the golf course. But when the Wangs, who are the people behind Majestic and Wintech bought the golf course, things kind of came to a head. So they sued us, we countersued, and the case went through the typical procedure of discovery, depositions, getting documents, that type of thing, and we went to trial. Excuse me. And in 2015, after a lengthy trial, we won, they lost. The court found that all of their claims were not supported against the association and awarded us a verdict against them, and found that the Wangs, Majestic and Wintech, had not been living up to the requirements that they had under recorded documents to maintain and operate the golf course. And a judgment was entered against them, which included an award of attorney's fees and an injunction against them that said how to maintain and operate the golf course and what documents were valid and so forth. And it's on your website. You can read it. I won't get into the minutia in that. Of course, they appealed, and it took years for that appeal to be decided, and the appellate court upheld the judgment in its entirety. So you fast forward to 2019, and they still were not living up to the terms of the judgment. They were ignoring the order of the court. And so we filed a motion in the court to have the terms of the judgment enforced. And one of the things that the judgment allowed for was the foreclosure of the golf course in the event that the operators, owners of the golf course, did not comply with the court's order. The court said that foreclosure was an option because the association owns a trust deed that is recorded against the property that allows for the foreclosure of the golf course property. And we started litigating that with them in court. Not the same judge that issued the order because she wasn't available, so we're in front of a different judge now. Excuse me. In August of 2019, the judge that was hearing the matter, frustrated, told the Wangs that if they did not do something to at least show progress towards fixing up the golf course, he was going to order the foreclosure of the golf course. 2 days after that statement was made in open court, a deed of trust in the amount of $3.4 million was recorded against the golf course property in favor of a person by the name of Sojin Chu, a Chinese national, a Taiwanese national, also a resident of the state of New Jersey. And that was an obvious ploy to try to prevent the foreclosure against the golf course by encumbering the golf course with that deed of trust. The association then filed a separate lawsuit against Sojin Chu and Majestic and the Wangs to have that deed of trust declared a fraudulent transfer in an effort to avoid a creditor. And that lawsuit is currently pending against them. Trial is set in mid-January on that case. So there's two parallel paths that are going on right now. In the meantime, after that action was taken by the Wangs, we had to pivot and revise our strategy onto how we were going to deal with the golf course, because foreclosure was not an option at that time. And so I asked the court to appoint a receiver to take over the golf course and comply with the terms of the judgment, get the Majestic and the Wangs out of the way and get someone in there that could possibly do that. Again, much wrangling went on. There were papers filed on both sides, multiple hearings held. Finally, in March of 2020, the court agreed, actually it was in January when the court agreed to appoint the receiver, and it was March 12th when a receiver was found and actually appointed and agreed to take over the golf course. Again, in the meantime, between the time the court ordered the appointment of the receiver and a receiver was appointed, the Wangs looted $250,000 out of the bank accounts of the golf course, so that when the receiver took over, he had less than $60,000 in the accounts of the bank account to operate the golf course with. Faced with that monumental uphill battle, the receiver got ready to go, and then what happened? COVID. And the golf course was shut down for a few months, and he was unable to generate any income from the golf course. Finally, in May, he was able to start opening the golf course on a limited play basis, and that was May of 2020. And so let's move forward through time to today. Every month, the receiver files a statement with the court saying how the golf course is doing and what the income is, what the expenses are, and the condition of the golf course. The receiver had made some strides to get the golf course back in shape, mainly focusing on the playing surfaces of the golf course. Now, one of the big things that we won in the judgment was a mandate. The court mandated that the fingers and the slopes of the golf course were indeed the responsibility of the golf course to maintain, and that they needed to replant the planting material that had been allowed to die off by the Wangs. They stopped watering those areas in 2009, and the irrigation system is completely rotted away. There's no irrigation out there on the slopes or the fingers right now. So the receiver was focusing mainly on getting the golf course into shape to try and generate enough income to help with the slopes and the fingers. Play was pretty robust for the last year. The Wangs, during the entire time they owned the golf course and operated it, ran at a loss every year in court filings, and at trial they put on evidence that they were losing anywhere from $250,000 to $500,000 per year on the golf course. And the receiver has demonstrated over the last probably 13, 14 months that a properly operated golf course, even one that's not in optimum condition like this one, can be a revenue generator. And until August and September, he was doing fairly well in generating a profit from the golf course, even taking into consideration the fees that the receiver had to charge for operating the golf course. The court would periodically have status conferences where the judge reviewed the case and made sure that the receiver was still doing his job and whatnot. We were supposed to have one in August. We had entered into settlement discussions with Mr. Chu and the Wangs during the summer. Unfortunately, I can't talk about those because those are privileged. Evidence code does not allow me to talk about the nature of the settlement negotiations, just the fact that we had entered into settlement negotiations, and we'd asked the court to continue the status conference until October, which the court did. Those settlement negotiations essentially fell apart, and there's no chance that anything is going to be settled. So the court was supposed to have a hearing this morning, but the Wang's attorney was unavailable, so the court has continued that to November 5th. So there's going to be a hearing on November 5th on the status of the receiver. In the meantime, the receiver has indicated that he is convinced that he will not be able to generate enough income from the golf course to fix up all the problems that were caused by the deferred maintenance over how many years, 10, 11, 12 years that the Wangs have owned the golf course. And he needs more capital to do that. So he has filed a petition with the court that we are supporting, and that petition is asking for 3 options. The first option is that the court order the Wangs and Majestic to contribute more capital to the golf course in order to comply with the judgment. The receivers determined that it's about a $1.3 million problem to fix everything that needs to be fixed. About $900,000 to $950,000 of that is directed exclusively at the fingers and the slopes. The rest of it is to get more modern equipment to maintain the golf course, the mowers and that type of thing, fix up the fairways and the other playing surfaces to bring them up to a standard that they need to be at, and to fix the bar and grill, which, as I'm sure most of you know, is very limited in its operations and what food services it can produce. The receiver feels that a fully operating bar and grill would generate a lot more revenue and a lot more income for the golf course, and that could be put towards the repairs that need to be made. So that's the first thing that the receivers asked for. I need money. Order them to give me money, because the judgment says that all of these repairs need to be done at the sole expense of Majestic and the Wangs. One thing that we won in the judgment was the court found that Majestic and Wintec were the alter egos of Hai and Jin Wang, that there'd been so much commingling of assets and lack of corporate formalities that those corporations essentially don't exist, that they are just the alter egos of Jen and Hai Wang. So the judgment is personal against Mr. and Mrs. Wang, as well as the corporations. So the court could order them to give more money. My sense is that that's probably not going to happen. The second thing that the receiver is asking for is for the court to issue an order that would allow him to issue what's called a receiver's certificate. And a receiver's certificate is a guarantee to a lender that would allow a lender to loan money to the receiver, pledging the golf course as collateral for that loan, and it acts as a super lien. In other words, it takes priority over all prior encumbrances on the golf course. So Mr. Chu's fraudulent $3.4 million would be bumped down one notch if the court allows the receiver certificate to be issued. I'm still not clear whether the court is going to do that or not, and it may not order that on the November 5th hearing date. It may ask for further briefing or get some proposals from lenders to see if that's an issue. The last thing that the receiver is saying is that if you don't let me get money from the Wangs, and if you don't let me borrow money from a lender, then you need to order the foreclosure of the golf course. Because as it stands right now, unless somebody comes in and buys this golf course or takes over this golf course who has money to put into it, I can't and nobody can fix the problems with the golf course. We have a trial coming up, like I said, in mid-January on the fraudulent conveyance issue. And it's very important, if the court's going to issue an order foreclosing the golf course, that that $3.4 million note the deed be removed, because with that on, there's just absolutely no way that anybody's going to come in and bid on this golf course. And then you face the real possibility that the golf course reverts back to the Wangs, who will put up a cyclone fence around it, shut it down, and you will have no more golf course within your community. That's a very real possibility. We've kicked that can down the road and tried as hard as we can to keep that from happening, and we will fight tooth and nail to keep that from happening. And there are things going on behind the scenes that haven't been approved by the board yet, but we're fighting to keep that from happening. On October 27th, there's another hearing in that same fraudulent transfer case, where the attorney for Mr. Chu has filed papers with the court asking to be relieved as his attorney. And the reasons that he's stated for that are that he is not able to communicate with his client refuses to take advice from him, and his client is not paying his legal fees. Motions like that are routinely granted. However, being this close to trial, the court might say, no, you can't abandon your client 2 months before a trial, or the court might say, okay, I'm going to allow you to withdraw as Mr. Chu's attorney, but I'm going to give Mr. Chu 60 days to find a new attorney, so I'm going to kick the trial out 60 days so that that new attorney can come in and get up to speed. I'm hoping that doesn't happen. We want this trial to happen. We want to know one way or the other whether the court is going to remove that trust deed in favor of Mr. Chu from the property. Now, I've talked about the performance deed of trust that the association owns. Back before the litigation began, the prior owner of the golf course, Pacific Golf, had required the Wangs to enter into this performance deed of trust. And what it was basically saying is, I'm going to sell you the golf course, and if I sell you the golf course, you have to agree that you're going to abide by all of these standards to operate and maintain the golf course, and I'm going to put it in this trust deed. And if you don't do that, I have the right to do certain things, including foreclose on the golf course. So the association bought that trust deed from Pacific Golf prior to the litigation and recorded the notice of assignment. So the association now, that is a very valuable asset that you all own as members of the association, this trust deed that encumbers that property and requires them under threat of foreclosure to maintain the property. So if the court orders foreclosure and the trust deed, Mr. Chu's trust deed, is not extinguished, the performance deed of trust, which was recorded prior to Mr. Chu's trust deed, says that you have, that the holder of this trust deed agrees to subordinate the trust deed to up to $1.25 million. So the worst case scenario you're looking at is that your trust deed still is valid, and the court has said it's valid, and the appellate court has said it's valid. So that issue is over. That issue is done and decided. The worst case scenario you're looking at is a $1.25 million encumbrance by Mr. Chu. So we've come a long way. We're still fighting hard. I've told you as much as I feel I can tell you right now without revealing any litigation strategies or attorney-client privilege information as to what we're going on, but I hope you will understand that we are fighting hard for you to keep this golf course open, and But the real possibility exists that at some time in the future, if we're unable to get things done the way that we want them to come out, you could lose your golf course.
So there's there's probably some concern out there, and we understand that. A lot of you heard a lot of information right now from Ryan. There's a whole lot more behind it. As part of the golf committee, we've been working with Ryan quite a bit on this to provide what insight we can and representing the homeowners here. Some of you probably got more information than you wanted to hear right now. Others are on the other end of the spectrum where, boy, you'd like to ask a few more questions. And obviously, this isn't the venue to do that in. So what we are trying to do, myself and a couple other folks on the golf committee, we're trying to put together a series of meetings in smaller groups in a more intimate setting where we can sit down, talk to you about what does this mean to you as a resident. He talked about 3 different outcomes that are possible. What does each outcome mean to those residents if this happens, if B happens, or if C happens? And then to also give you the opportunity to ask questions and we can have some discussion around it. So just trying to help put information out so that you know what's going on. So you'll be hearing from us, and we're going to probably wait till after the November 5th hearing. We'll have some solid ground to move forward with, that we can have some open discussion with all of you. You'll be hearing more about it. We're going to try to limit it to not a group of, what do we got here, 2,500 people. That obviously wouldn't work, but if we can break that down into smaller groups, we're looking at about 10 meetings. We're calling them mini meetings that we can have, and that'll be coming down the pipe for you, and we'll want to do that in November and early December before the holidays. Details to come, but that's where we're at right now, just to open up some communication. It's important for everybody in here to at least know what it is you want to know about the course. Are we going to be able to deliver all the answers at that time? The stuff we can't deliver, we'll let you know. I'm not going to pretend we're going to have all the answers, but we got a pretty good feel of what the different scenarios are and what the outcomes might be. The other big wrench in all this, California's changed the game for us too. It's the recent rulings for what you can do with building property nowadays. We used to have that protection. Well, we're zoned open space, we're zoned recreational. That safety net is quickly disappearing for us. So it's important that we bring this thing to conclusion. That's all I've got.
Thank you, Bruce. I notice that many of you have an agenda in front of you and would ask that you pull out a pen or pencil. On November 4th, which is one day before Ryan goes back into court on the 5th, on November 4th, we will have a single topic golf open session at 1 o'clock. It is very important that you attend that 1 hour meeting, that those of you that are watching on Zoom, to come down to the clubhouse, to come down to the auditorium that day and hear firsthand what some of the things that your committee is talking about. So it will be a major announcement on the golf course on the 4th of November at 1 o'clock. Please plan to be in attendance. If you want to be informed and you want to be involved, we're trying to get that out to you, but we need you to tune in or to come down and to find out what's going on. Thank you, Ryan. Thank you, Bruce. And thank you for each of you as we continue to work on the 21-year saga of the Colony Golf Course, hoping to bring it to conclusion. At this time, I have a couple of other announcements from executive this morning. We did approve a series of minutes from the past 2 or 3 months. We also had a request from the city of Murrieta. As you know, they periodically use our auditorium and they get information in front of you. They have asked if we would maybe consider doing something that would allow them maybe having one page in our newsletter each month if there's something from the city that they feel is important for all of you to know in order for us to give them a page and they can put that in there. So anyway, we approved that we're going to work with the city in order to, again, keep all of you informed. We did talk briefly about the pickleball striping. We have more information on that later on, and we'll have something to say about that shortly. At this time, I have a special recognition to have here. Ken Knapp, if you would come up front here, please. Ken, if you would stand here sort of between Jim Nash and Bruce right there. Let me just read something here for you. Ken is the facility maintenance manager at the Colony. While the clubhouse was closed for COVID restrictions, Ken took advantage of an empty clubhouse and undertook many maintenance projects. Additionally, he often visited the clubhouse to help cover employee lunch hours due to the staffing shortage. After a full year without community events, when we reopened, the team has been extremely busy. They still aren't fully staffed, and as you can imagine, this could bring stress upon any team. However, Ken has kept his team motivated and encouraged to continue providing unsurpassed customer service and dedication to our community. During Labor Day weekend, his team held a bingo event with 100+ attendance on a Friday, a live music event on Saturday with 200 in attendance, and a party on Sunday with 300 in attendance. Ken showed up for every event to ensure that the setup was complete and his team had the support they needed to complete the job. In addition to supporting the team with events, Ken is also responsible for major contracts going to the board for approval. During this past year, Ken has worked tirelessly to ensure the board and residents continues to receive the very best customer service. I am pleased to present to you, Ken, from the Colony Homeowners Association, a 5-star champion award winner, Ken Knapp, in recognition of your efforts to provide outstanding 5-star customer service. Thank you on behalf of the board and our community for your service. Thank you. Okay. Thank you so much. Okay. At this time, we're going to have the board liaison reports, and I know that Jane, you here somewhere, Jane? Why don't you come on up, and we'll get a slide up there, I think, that has something that you'll be talking about, and so go ahead.
Okay, thank you, Walt. As mentioned in the October newsletter article, during the last 13... Yes, can you hear? Okay. During the past 13 years, the Colony has just about cut the amount of water we use in half. We've reduced our usage by over 68 million gallons. We got these savings by changes in our irrigation system and by reducing the amount of turf in the common areas. So this chart shows the Colony's actual water usage, which is the blue bar, and the cost, the rust bar, dating back to fiscal year 2008-9. The gray line at the top represents what our water costs would be if we had not undertaken these water reduction steps. This is using the 2008-9 usage multiplied by the average cost for that year. As you can see, for the last year, our estimated water bill would be close to $800,000. This would be almost double what our actual costs were for that year. This estimate is understated because of the large amount of water from 2008-9. If that had been consumed last year, the extra water would fall mostly in the high tier pricing. Therefore, the average cost could be higher than $4.29, which could make our actual cost approach $1 million. So look for the next LAC article,
which will describe a water savings initiative we're looking at testing, and we hope to bring this to the board in January. And the best part is it will save money, water, and homeowners most likely won't even notice the change. Thank you.
Thank you, Jane.
Walt, can I have a comment?
Joanne?
I asked Walt to have Jane bring this up after I read her article in the newsletter, and given my math, I figured out it's about $31 a month we're saving in our maintenance fee right now, based on what the Landscape Committee and EC did. Had they not done that project, we'd be paying at least $31 a month more now, and each year it would go up because water costs are going up significantly. So it's a great savings for us, even though we miss our grass, it's a great savings.
So you see, when we did the returfing, and we often, through Anthony and Mel before him, were able to get grants in order to move in this direction, that the tremendous savings that as a community, as residents, that we've been able to have. So again, I want to salute the Landscaping Committee and Anthony and his group for working hand in hand in order to bring us these savings. And thank you so much. At this time, I want to continue with the Board Liaisons report, and I'll start with Dell. Basically, this is an opportunity for each board member to say what their particular liaison is and what's going on in their committee.
On the Access Control Committee, it's just been recently brought up to them that people have noticed that people are kind of speeding by our front door, and a couple incidents that were kind of dangerous there, so they're going to take that up at their next meeting, see what we can do about that. The EPC, the Emergency Preparedness Committee, they do their test on their radio checks and everything to make sure they can talk to all the people out there that are going to take care of things in an emergency. And they need a higher power repeater, and so that'll be presented pretty soon to the board for approval to get something better in there to broadcast the signal out to everybody. Other than that, I think that's about it.
Thank you, Dell.
Liaison for the Violations Committee wanted to report that the parking violations fortunately are down this month. For whatever reason, trash cans now have become more of a problem. We had 6 letters we sent out in August, and in September we sent out 40 letters. People are failing to bring their trash cans back up. It reminds me, one of my neighbors used to live in one of these other communities around here, and he was telling me that they take their trash cans out on Monday, and they just keep taking the trash out to the street. They never bring their cans in, and it doesn't look real good. So if you're one of those folks, you get a letter the first time and there's no fine. After that, it's $25. Speeding violations, we notice they've gone down considerably too. If you've been to one of our recent hearings, we've had a lot of speeding violations, and we try to explain to people who come to the meetings that we're just trying to enforce the rules. There's so many people walk in our community. The office is constantly having people call, say, these guys never stop at these stop signs, they're speeding. So if you'll see, we are cracking down on those. Stop sign violations, we had 63 in August. We had 14 in September. So if you came to one of our meetings, you now know why we are down to 14. I'm going to let Jim Nash do the finances this time. I want to say a special thanks to Jane Payne for doing this. We talked about this a week or so ago. It's actually been talking about it for quite some time, about letting people know how much money we've really saved by eliminating the turf. One of the things she didn't mention was the board several years ago, when they decided to do this, they decided we would take up 70% of the grass. And we still have 30% left. Maybe it's not in your backyard, but there is still 30% left. And They made a great decision so many years ago, and it's saved us a lot of money and a lot of water. Thank you.
Go ahead.
I wanted to be a director this year after 4.5 years on the board. It's not that I wanted to get away from Walt, but I wanted to be a director to pursue a project that the colony began 2.5 years ago called a Strategic Long-Range Plan. We were about in the middle of that when the person leading us left the state. We had a change in board members and COVID hit. So that stopped everything. So I want to go back to this and complete it because we are a 32-year-old community with over a $5 million a year budget and no plan. We do things pretty much on the fly, whatever needs to be done, but there's so many projects and things that we could plan for to make this community something that people want to buy into, people want to live in and meet the needs of the people coming in as well as the ones who are here now, and do it in a planned procedure that includes the finances we have and taking that into consideration. There are probably 3 parts to a strategic plan. The first one is the projects that we have, and I'll give you a quick update on those to answer some of the questions of the residents who spoke. Second part of it are those things that we would like to do, such as security cameras. We've had incidents in the pool, we've had incidents in the courts, in the lobby. We need security cameras, but that's something that is not repair and replace. That is a new cost, and so we have to figure out where that money comes from. Another part of that might be electronic filing system to get rid of all the filing cabinets and give us more room in the offices. Also give us quick access to files and things that we would put in there. The third part of a strategic long-range plan are those things that don't cost any money. They take time. One of the things that we began working on, Jim Morgan, is taking the charters from the committees and standardizing them, having a standard form for our charters. And what goes along with that then is having training for our committees and our clubs. We don't really train the people who run those clubs, and they're a vital part of our community. We should all be going the same direction. In other words, we should be more committed and more connected to the clubs and the committees that we have. We should be able to give them more information, more training. Along with that probably is putting together a best plan on how you attract people to join the committees. That all takes time. It doesn't take money, but it's part of a strategic plan. And technology. We've gotten a lot of good suggestions from the Communications Committee, and we need to follow through on a lot of those. We need to be more technically advanced than we are. I mean, some of us are probably technically challenged, but as a whole, we need to move ahead in this community. People should be able to access information they want quickly. We should have a phone system that sends out e-blasts by phone for those people who don't want to see it on their computer. That's part of it. So it's making this a desirable, well-managed community through the end of this decade even, and one that has a plan, and a plan that includes input from all the people in this community. And we don't have that right now, so that's what I plan to work on. Part of that, I said, was the things that we're currently working on. One of them was the exterior clubhouse and other buildings, the maintenance and the paint. And to answer Gloria's questions, Primeco was the company that we selected, and they will begin Monday doing a pre-construction job walk. You're going to see them moving in storage containers, dumpsters, equipment, materials, and supplies for the project, and then beginning November 1st, they'll have people here to start the project. That does include all of the repair on the outside of the building before they paint, just like you would do in your home. And they're adding to the repairs and replacement the park course, the fitness stations that are part of our walking courses. That is also going to be repaired along with it. And of course, because we're painting the outside, the pilasters will also be painted. That answers that question. So I'm hoping that answered all of Gloria's questions. Okay. Good questions. 2, lighting. We had 2 separate RFPs for lighting. One is for stage lighting, and the other is for the parking lot lighting, the lights on the outside of this building, the pool area, the lounge area, and the controller for all of that. Those RFPs went out for bid. And after those are finished, we have the blackout shades that will be also part of that. Repair and resurfacing of tennis paddle and pickleball courts, that's completed. The pool barbecue area cover. Difficulty getting a local supplier. There is one particular aluminum cover that Jim Morgan has been working on, and there's only one company that supplies it locally. We are having the same problems that you probably are having if you're doing home repairs, and all of the companies across the country are having. We cannot get people to bid. They're afraid they won't be able to get the materials that they need, and they don't have the labor to do it. So it's very difficult to get bids. We are exploring cost differences of just taking out some of the middle posts and repairing the cement, or do we take out all of the posts and redo the cement and make it, it's uneven right now, but evening that out, removing the pillars and putting on the roof. So there's a cost difference there. We don't know what it is yet because we need to get somebody to help us bid on it. The bocce ball court, we have probably 3 things we can do with that, and there are a lot more people that would like to play. It's not a regulation course. So what we could do is either find somewhere else in here where we could actually build a regulation course and use that area back there for something else, or we could just do a quick repair that would last probably a couple years, or we could take out all of the cement and the wood and rebuild it all, but it's still not a regulation course. So that's something the board needs to decide upon. The electrical pedestals that are in our open areas along by the street, those have all been inspected. There are 10 of them that need to be replaced, and the rest will be painted or touched up. The slopes, I believe we have 3 slopes probably that are left that need to be completed. Is that right, Anthony? And they should be done by mid-November, and then the whole slopes replanting project will be completed for now. Something else, the Boulder Corner, which is Jane's favorite project. Right now, we're waiting for a quote. We have 1 quote. We're waiting for another 1 or 2 for the cement. In other words, the area that you see outlined there could either be decomposed granite or it could be cement. And I believe there is, from the board's perspective, probably a belief that cement will, 1, last longer, 2, make it easier for people who would access it with canes or walkers or a scooter or a wheelchair. And it would last longer. It wouldn't have to be retouched all the time. So we're waiting for another bid on that before we make that decision. And when it comes to the cover, there's going to be a cover over that, and it'll have a solar panel on it that will run the fountain. Anthony and Jim have actually run down vendors they've seen in here who are repairing or putting in new aluminum covers for residents, run them down and said, can we get a quote from you? Because they can't get people to answer and bring them back quotes. So they're doing everything they can to get a quote for that. But if you're going to pour cement, you have to have the footing in first. And in order to do that, you have to know where the cover is going and where the posts are going and where the footings are going, so you know how to pour the cement. So it's cart before the horse or whatever they're doing there. Other projects, let's see. Security cameras. We actually have pretty well finished the specs for that. This is Mary Ann Plummer's, for the 13 years I think she's been on the board, she's wanted security cameras. That we can move up if the board makes that decision to move that up. That is not a repair and replace, that is a new item. That means it comes out of equity or it comes out of the budget. So I think that's an update on everything I know about I said I would do this quarterly. I did it in June. I wasn't here in September. I was having a 50th anniversary in Hawaii. So this is October, and that's your quarterly update.
Yeah, I have to follow up Joanne's comment. As you know, Joanne served for a number of years as the vice president, and I'm an early morning riser at 4 o'clock, and Joanne is an early morning riser at 4 o'clock. and usually by 5 o'clock we were on the phone. She was probably out walking, and every day we pretty much had a conversation. And then when she became a director this year, I walked into, so I sort of bother Bruce, not at 4 o'clock in the morning, I don't, but I usually get hold of him. And one of the first things that Joanne said to me when I walked in last month, she said, "I feel like we're divorced. We don't talk to each other anymore." So I do find reasons to call her periodically and to get caught up a little bit, but she has been such an inspiration to us on the board, to me, and to all of you. Let's just thank her for what she's doing. This time we're going to go to Bruce.
All right, so obviously, this is my first board meeting, and I'm meeting my new committees. And I can tell you, my committees are Communications and Recreational and Fitness, along with the Golf Committee, and I can share with you, it's like drinking through a fire hose right now. So a lot of information coming at me, but I have learned that there's a lot going on, and we got some really good things going on in communications that I was pleased to find out. You know, one of the things they're looking to do is a digital census. You know, how do people communicate in our community? Because there's two things that have changed here. One that has changed dramatically in the last couple of years are the demographics, as that age has come down, the average age. The other thing that's changed and will continue to change is technology. And how do we bring those two things together? What are the opportunities for us to have better communications through different methods? And what we're going to try to find out, or what the committee's looking to put together, is a census that's going to be sent to all of you. The good news is, for those of you that aren't heavy into technology, we're sending a paper copy out. Those that are into technology, they're going to look to send it out digitally also, so you can just click and do that stuff. But really to find out, with the different demographics, how do you communicate? What are your preferences? What are the ways the communication committee needs to be looking at starting today and going forward to improve the communications and open up better avenues? The other thing that I was pleased to find out they're looking at, in fact, I met with Jane and Ken over here, and they are very active in putting together a survey for a new website. And I was pleased to see they've really done the due diligence. They're really drilling down. What are the details we need in a website that really needs some serious updating? Both for information inside the gate, and what's the information we need inside this gate that people will use on the website. But it's not just about inside the gate, it's also outside the gate. When it comes to marketing the colony and keeping our home values out, we have to put out a bold statement of who we are and why we're here and what we can deliver to people. And that needs to be updated. We've talked to some, I know they've talked to some realtors that said, you know what, there's people, after coming to our website, they decide, oh, I don't think I want to go there. Just by doing that. So that's something there's a huge marketing impact for this website. So again, it's both how do we get the best use out of it for our people here, our residents, and what can we do to market properly so that when people do sell homes, you got people coming in. Our values have gone up, but as you've seen throughout Southern California now, it is stabilizing. And as they're stabilized, let's make sure we continue to grow that part of it. So they're looking at a redesign, and you will be seeing a survey coming out on that also. So we ask, on behalf of the Communications Committee, please, when you get these, I know a lot of people like to take surveys and throw them all away. I'm too busy for that. They really implore you to take the time, fill them out. They're not long. They'll be easy to get through, but take the time and get those back in. The other thing they're looking at with the Communications Committee, and Joanne just talked about this, we need to get our technology up to speed. And I have had the opportunity to spend some time in their AV room back there. I've got a little background in that myself, so I was able to understand a lot of it. And it's time they upgrade some things. I mean, for instance, when they do this board meeting right here, we send it out live. You've got a director back there that's working on a screen this size with quadrants in it and trying to, work on who to show from what angle and things like that. We need to get their screens updated into today's technology, not 10-year-old technology, to where they have screens they can really use and are good visually for them. The other thing is they're looking to purchase a new camera. that will give them more flexibility. And the one thing that will do is allow them, the new camera they're looking at will not only add enhancements for how they can broadcast things out of here, but it's also built to be a field camera to where you don't need to be connected. And that offers opportunity for all of you that are in other committees and clubs. If you need to have things filmed, they'll be able to, it'll give them a lot more flexibility to do things out in the field, whether it be at the tennis courts, at the pool, maybe to put a marketing video together once we get it for the new website. There's lots of opportunity there, and so that's what they're looking at there. So know that your communications committee, those guys work hard. They meet twice a month. I know they say they meet twice a month, but I know in my 3 weeks I've had 6 meetings with them. So they're really active. The other committee that I've got responsibility for, besides the golf committee, you already know about that, but the recreation and fitness. And I said, you know, I want to get those people together to see where they're at and learn what I got to learn. And I found out they haven't met for about 3 years. In fact, they weren't sure who all the people were on it, because it was designed to be on an as-needed basis. So we are in the process now of reconstructing that committee. In fact, we've already got a date on the calendar for November 3rd. And what we're going to do is, rather than assign a name from men's golf or a name from women's golf, but say, because those positions change a lot, we're going to say, we would like the president of the men's golf to be a member, the president of the women's golf to be a member, so that as they rotate that person can come on, but also still name some individuals. We want a representative also from tennis. We want a representative from paddle. We want a representative from pickle. We want a representative, that covers all the racket sports, but then we got the pool, we got the fitness center. We're going to make sure we get representation in there, and we have the opportunity to look and see what are those opportunities, what issues need to be addressed. I sure don't know what they are at this time. I know some of them because I use the pool, I use the fitness center, but I don't know all the other things that go on. So we want to make sure we get your input, and these guys are working hard in the recreation and fitness. And Wendell's the chairman of that, by the way, and he's the one getting all the people together for this going forward. So I think we want to make sure the activities are there that you need, the way you need them in, and we want to make sure there's a group of people to address those for you. And that's all I've got right now.
Jim?
Bruce used a little bit of my time, so I'll be brief. In addition to being treasurer, I'm chairman of the Finance Advisory Committee. And in addition to the routine things we do every month, like reviewing financial statements, is working on the budget. Sorry. And we're in the process of developing the schedule for that right now. And you can anticipate that the workshops open to the general membership and the town hall meeting on the budget will occur in January. Exact dates haven't been set, but that's going to be the general schedule. That's it. Yeah. I feel like I'm on stage.
Well, what that proves is that we do need some new curtains up there, and they will be, as I understand, they will be remote control. So the big ladder that would have to come in to adjust that right now won't have to ever come back in again once we do that. We've kept you a long time. I'm just going to tell you I'm the liaison to the Architectural Control Committee, and they work their little fingers to the bone doing all that they do. They're going to be out a couple times this next week, finishing final inspections on projects that colonists have completed, and sign them off so that they can go into a file cabinet and be taken care of and forgotten for a while. Another committee is the social committee, and they're going to be throwing quite a 50s, 60s party on the 30th, and I hope that a lot of you will come, and they're requesting costumes, so if you're into that kind of thing, be sure and come on out for that. I don't know, Janice, is someone here? There are no tickets left, right? The tickets are gone, Helen? Okay, so you can watch the colony emailers, and people might be selling tickets there that their plans have changed, so keep your eyes open on that. I'm also liaison to the Neighborhood Information Committee, the Library Committee, and Rules and Regs. And talk about an eye-opening. I had my first Rules and Regs meeting, and they're busy people too. I have an announcement about that later, but so my feet are going to be getting wet on how those rules and regs actually are changed and how they come to us. But I'll move on. Oh, I'm done. I'm it. We're done. Oh.
Let's try this, Walt. That thing died, looks like. Sorry about that.
This better? Okay. But really, it just, again, shows how busy everybody is, as well as in your lives, in terms of trying to get everything done in a organized manner. At this time, you all know that about a week and a half ago, we had a series of break-ins, and your Access and Control Committee is very concerned. I'd like to ask Glenn Gerber if he would come up to the podium and make a couple of remarks about that.
Good afternoon. My name is Glenn Gerber. I'm with the Access and Control Committee, and I'm speaking on their behalf to give you a little update on the vehicle break-ins we had, and also some tips for crime prevention that we all know but we need a review for. So on the night of October 13th into the morning of October 14th, a few vehicles parked in the colony were broken into, and one vehicle was stolen. The Murrieta Police Department recovered the stolen vehicle later that same day, and they also caught the perpetrator, which is good. Being alert to your surroundings and reporting anything that seems suspicious can go a long way. If you notice any suspicious activity, please call 911 immediately. After that, call the community patrol. I have their number. I don't know if it's not up there, but we need to get you the number of the community patrol. If you have a pencil, I have it. It's 951-677-0238. If you want it today, come see me. Otherwise, then we'll get it to you. Although Colony is a gated community, it is not secure. Nordic Security is not a police force. They only drive around and watch for bad behavior. The guards do not have any weapons, nor, this is what you need to know, they are not allowed to confront anyone committing a crime. They call 911, same as you and I would. So I've been in the colony a couple of years, and I've kind of let my guard down. But this is a good reminder that they are here to patrol, which they do a very good job of, but they are not policemen, and they do not confront people. Here's a few tips we have for fighting crime. The exterior lighting. As I say, most of these are obvious, but we just need a reminder. Please ensure that all your exterior lighting is turned on. This can deter anyone trying to break in. Lock up. Always keep doors locked, even if you are home. Before leaving your home, you should not only lock all doors, but lock your windows. This is something I'm guilty of not doing. Vehicle theft. Keep your vehicles locked every time you exit when you are inside, even if you're only gone for a moment. And make sure that no valuables are left in your car or anything that may attract attention. Item 4.3.1 of the Rules and Regulations states that each resident shall keep his garage readily available for parking of his respective vehicles. So residents are encouraged to park their vehicles in their garage. The rules and regulations also encourage homeowners to keep their garage doors closed when the garage is unattended. So always try to keep your garage door closed. Protecting our community is everyone's responsibility. It's not just the security patrol. It's my responsibility and it's your responsibility. We should report anything suspicious. While it's impossible to eliminate all risks, being alert and taking basic safety precautions can help curb the crime. So we did have, it was quite an eye-opener, the break-ins we had, it was for me anyway. So it kind of renewed my thought of being more vigilant in protecting my own car and my own home, and I encourage all of you to do the same. Thanks.
I think I'm back on this now. Is that okay? I've just been notified again for the Communications Committee. This is why technology is so important. That the streaming is not operable at the moment. However, we will get something out so that if you want, you just notified me that it's up. Okay, so welcome back those of you that have been disrupted up to now. We really didn't cover anything important while you were gone, but you can get caught up by reading your news magazine the next time. At this time, we do have an architectural appeal hearing, and I'd like to ask both Mr. Tucker and Ms. Brodsky if they would come up to the front. Mr. Tucker, you'll be able to go first and explain why you are appealing the fence rules. So why don't you go first, and then we'll hear from Gloria and the committee. Go from there.
Good afternoon. I'm Brian Tucker, and I'm also representing my neighbor, Mary Truesdell, who could not be here. I'm 24150 Corte Valente. She's 24136. We're neighbors. I moved into the community about January of 2020, and we bought the place on Corte Valente, and it was in really terrible shape. I believe the architectural committee there was a lot of violations on it already, and I think we bit off more than we could chew, like a lot of people do, and we got into it, and it was just one thing after another, but we wanted to do the right thing, and we kept at it and kept our nose to the grindstone, and I had not ever lived, believe it or not, in a community that had an HOA. I'd always lived on property out in the sticks, so to speak. So I just went along my merry way, doing what I always did when I fixed up my other properties. And part of what I did was I just went around the community and looked around at what was there, and wanted to remain in conformance with the big picture, if you will. So I measured fences and measured a bunch of different fences, and I found they were kind of all over the place. So I called a couple of fence guys and got fence bids and had my fence put up. I had really at that point had no idea that there was a limit and that I was over the limit. And in fact, I'd been here since, well, I put the fence up, I don't know what month, early 2020, and I got the complaint in the middle of 2021, some close to a year and a half later. So I was surprised to get the thing, but in going through the process and dealing with the HOA and dealing with the folks down at the office, I realized that clearly back in that I'd made a mistake back there by not doing the right thing and not consulting the committee. And I really feel bad about it because I don't want to be that guy that does that doesn't obey the rules and causes you guys heartache because you have a lot of important things to deal with, as we've heard today. So, all I can say, it was an honest mistake. I'd rather not have to cut my fence down or tear my fence down because it would be expensive. It's just a few inches over the height, but I get it.
Okay, thank you.
Okay.
For those that are just listening and piecing together before Gloria, The fence that he put up was a couple of inches taller than what the rules allow, but as he said, he had looked at others, neighbors across the street, saw those were the same height, and of course, when it came up, the architectural committee denied, even though it's after the fact. Gloria, why don't you step up?
This is a long story. I hope I get it right. There's a reason that he just received the letter, and that's because somebody else wanted to put a fence up that's as high as his. So now we've got a group of people that don't want to go by the guidelines. He did not have an application put in, and there were applications out here during COVID, and I think people were pretty well notified that you could get an application. So Colleen measured the Corte Valente and found there are several homes on that street that have a higher fence, and those were approved basically between 2014 and 2016. So, you know, it's up to you. It's up to you guys what you want to do. It's just, you know, we again have people not turning in an application and going ahead and doing something, and then it doesn't get corrected because of the cost. So I don't know what you want to do. We just have to deny it because it's not the height of our guidelines. So
That is the fact that your
Turn on your button.
committee does have to follow the rules that
Right.
are written. So what you're doing is exactly what you should be doing.
Right.
And a resident who wants to appeal it is doing exactly what you're doing it. You appeal it before the board.
Right. So it's your decision. Any
Thank
other
you.
questions? Okay.
Thank you. At this time, we do have a management recommendation. Amy, do you have that in front of you that you could read that?
Yes, so I would move that the Board of Directors consider approving the homeowner's applications due to the fact that all the other vinyl fencing on this street was approved at various heights.
Is there a second to that?
I second
It's moved in second. Is there discussion? Amy?
Discussion. I didn't write this, but I agree with the motion. It's not Brian's fault, totally. But I do believe that the problem of people being notified that they need to apply, you moved into an HOA, there are rules, and these guidelines need to be followed, and from here on out, that the 5'5", 5'6" height should be mandatory.
Okay. Any other discussion? Glenn?
I got back from a trip last night, and I was reading through this at 9:30 last night, and I went out in my pajamas and measured my own fence.
I missed that.
Oh, I was.
So my own fence is taller than his. So it happens in this neighborhood. I applaud Gloria for following the rules. I think that's what we need to do. But I think sometimes you have to put a little common sense into this, and I appreciate the guy coming forward telling us what happened. I'm in favor of
Okay.
giving him a break.
Any other discussion before we vote? Seeing none, all those in favor of the motion to allow this to stand with,
No,
on the risk
grant the variance.
to move forward and not setting a precedent any other way. All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 7-0. Thank you very, very much, and thank you there. Thank you for being upfront as to what happened to approve it. All right, and trying to move into our agenda now, I'm going to go to Joanne for the consent package.
I move to approve the consent agenda items 2 through 7, the August 18th general board meetings, the monthly review of financials for July and August, the board authorization of transfers and expenditures over $10,000, which we are required by law to do for September and October, the approval of David Matucci, and Ed Camp and Ed as a returning member as new members of the LAC, the approval of Jack Spencer as new member, Rules and Regs Committee, and 11 transfers for tree stumps and irrigation issues, and 1 for the Solar Solutions fountain that will go in the Boulder Corner. I need a second.
Is there a second to that?
I'll second that.
All right, it's been moved and seconded to forward the consent package to the board for approval. Any discussion? Jim Nash?
I'll be abstaining on item 2, since I wasn't on the board at the time.
Okay,
As will I.
as will Bruce, so note that. So with the exception of number 2, where they're abstaining, are we ready to vote? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Okay, and these two okay, except for those 2 numbers right there, and go from there. So thank you so much. All right, at this time, we're going to go to Jim Nash for the treasurer's report. I was going to tell him, he left and he had to stay here. If we had to stay here for him, he needed to stay here for the rest of our meetings. I got to send his phone went off. We need, is there somebody got a phone? I can get him back in here right away. So anyway, thank you so much, Jim Nash.
Yes, thank you, Walt. We have two months of treasurer's reports to go over. They are July and August. We'll take July first. And just as a reminder, these are all unaudited figures and are rounded to the nearest thousandth. So at these are the fund balances as of the end of July. Operational fund was $1,938,000. Reserve fund was at $3,505,000. We have the separate golf course settlement account, which is currently at $352,000. And total homeowner equity, $1,884,000. Next slide. As far as the income and expenses for the month, one thing I'll point out is on the 4th line under other income, other revenue. You'll see our actual revenue is $41,000 higher than the budget. And that's due primarily to a settlement we got for a reimbursement for attorney fees. So a one-time increase. And as far as the expenses go, on the right-hand side of the column, you can see the ones that are in have the parentheses around them were over budget. For example, landscape water budgeted at $92,000 and came in for the first 3 months of the year at $99,000. And next slide. So at the end of the 3-month period, this should say July at the top, not June, was for the 3 months ending July 31st, the total surplus was $213,000. And we always report on the delinquencies. As of the end of July, we had an outstanding 69 accounts totaling $66,000.
I think we have 2 in foreclosure, right? At least 2.
Currently, yes. That concludes the July. If you have any questions before we move on to August.
Do we need?
I do. Can you explain that reduction we got from the attorneys?
No, it was a reimbursement for attorney fees.
We were overpaid on the attorney?
No, we paid, yeah, the lawsuit. It was all connected to the golf course. We were granted reimbursement of expenses we had.
We won a motion to force the Wangs to pay our attorney's fees for the motion that we filed to enforce the judgment. And the court granted us about $41,000 in attorney's fees for that.
You want to accept that month before we go on to the next month? Do you want to accept all before we go on to the next one?
Yeah.
Make a motion.
Okay, No other questions on the July financials. I motion in this order to accept the report.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of accepting 7-0. Go ahead, Jim, continue.
Now we'll move on to August. Again, some of the same figures. You'll notice a difference in all of them for month to month. Nothing out of the ordinary here. Going to next slide. Again, the good news is, as you see the right-hand column, we are all, again, with the exception of landscape water, pretty much under budget in most categories. As far as the landscape water goes, remember this was for July, and this is August, probably the two hottest months of the year. We're anticipating that that's going to normalize over the rest of the winter and spring. So at the end of August, the surplus we have is $226,000. And again, that's always positive information. Delinquencies. Surprising to me, within a month from July to August, we now have 138 accounts. That's up from 66 in the prior month. And I'm not sure why that is. Why?
Vacations.
Oh, vacations. Okay.
I looked at a lot of those, and they were like 1 month. I mean, there's a whole bunch of them
Yeah,
that were
yeah,
just 1 month.
they're all relatively small. You see the 108 of them are under 30 days.
Typically go away fairly quick.
Yeah.
It's just crossing in the mail. It's a timing issue typically.
Okay. That's it for the August report. If there are no questions, I'll make a motion to accept the report.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 7-0. You have that other issue you want to address about Tom Brocken?
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
A couple more things
All right,
here
Jim,
first.
have other stuff?
No. The items number 9 and 10 on the agenda. The notice of sale for APN 947-721-043. Recommend tabling that for the time being.
There's a motion to table on our agenda number 9. Is there a second to that?
Second.
All right, any discussion? All those in favor of tabling that one? 7-0. Jim, go ahead.
Yeah, this, the second one, the approval notice of sale, excuse me, should be notice of default. That is being recommended, and we just need a motion to approve that.
Do we want to read the number into that?
Sure. APN 947-630-031 is a notice of default.
Okay, there is a motion to that. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7-0. Thank you very, very much. Jim?
Wait a minute. Walt, I want to take a little extra time here to address this issue surrounding the letter that went out to all homeowners, received probably in the last 2 or 3 days. You know, I feel as the current treasurer and chairman of the finance committee, I want to maybe bring some clarity to that issue, especially in light of a couple of the comments we've had this afternoon at the member comments. Earlier this year, the Financial Advisory Committee discovered that there was a discrepancy in the mailing that went out to all homeowners, which included the budget and information about the reserves. Unfortunately, the discovery that was made by the committee came after the mailing. And so that is the reason that the corrected information was sent out in the last couple of days. Now, when the Financial Advisory Committee discovered this discrepancy, they very well could have said, "Oh, it's water under the bridge. It's happened. It's too late to do anything about it. Maybe we wait till next year and correct it." But the committee, to their credit, in the spirit of transparency and full disclosure, I believe, wanted to make a correction and recommended to the board, or I guess suggested to the board, that the correction be made and all homeowners be made aware of the discrepancy. The board did agree with that, and the result of that was the letter that everybody received. I know from conversations I've had with homeowners over the last 2 or 3 days who approached me wondering what this letter is all about. And a couple of questions. One was, how did this happen? How could such a mistake happen, or an oversight? The budget year begins May 1st through April, the end of April, every year. In order to have the budget prepared, the board retains a specialist, a reserve consulting firm that provides information to the board through the Financial Advisory Committee on what to put in the budget for the next year. So that consultant is hired in usually November, starts work in December, 4 months before the actual end of the fiscal year. That consultant has to make a projection as to how much money is going to be in our reserve fund at that time. Historically, the projected number and the actual number are never the same, because you're doing a projection based on an actual fund balance. This year was a little different because the discrepancy was so large. In the past, there's been no need to send out another letter correcting the information, but because of the size of the discrepancy, it was decided to do that. One of the other questions I was confronted with was, where did the money go? And I can assure you that there's absolutely no missing funds. This was best characterized as an oversight or a miscalculation. The money that we put into the reserves every month and building up our reserve fund is safe and secure. And I've talked to people and said, there is no missing money. There's no funds being misdirected. Now, one of the bottom lines is, when that mailing went out in March, we had thought our reserves were at 73% funded. And we've always touted ourselves as being financially secure as an association because we had, what was considered a very good level of funding in our reserves. Now we know that it's like 63%. It's not 70%, which is what we'd like to be at, but it's still very acceptable. And what I can do is assure the board, all members of the board, and everyone in the community that the Finance Advisory Committee and myself will be much more diligent in reviewing the reserve study in coming years. So I hope this lends some clarity to what transpired, and that's all I have to say.
Thank you, Jim, for updating us, and appreciate all the work that you and the committee does each year. And I know we're getting ready to start another budget part, and your time is going to be very well taken, and we look forward to future reports about that. At this time, I'd like to move on to the unfinished business, and Amy, I'm going to go to you.
We're dealing with the final approval of some of the rule changes that we've requested, and this first one is the vehicle access rules, and I move to adopt Article 4, which is up there on the screen for you to read yourself. The vehicle access rule as submitted, this rule was published in the July Colony News for member comment. There were no comments submitted for the board review.
So you're moving?
I moved.
All right, is there a second? Moved and second. Any discussion? Jim?
Yes, I'm just curious, in carrying this out, who's going to be doing the inspection of the parking lot to determine if there is a violation?
Well, I got a violation.
Security does it. Security.
Okay.
He held his hand up back there.
And how often is that done?
Okay.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other discussion? All those in favor of accepting the motion? 7-0. Amy?
The second one is the fine schedule for the age verification, which is a very important part of our 55-plus license, if you will, or the ability for us to continue as a senior community. So I move to adopt Article 5, Age Verification Rule as submitted. This rule was published in the August Colony News. For member comment, there were no comments submitted for board review.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. 7-0. Amy?
The next one is the final approval of home inspections violations. It's up there for you to read. I move to adopt Article 14.6.1, Home Inspection Rule as submitted. This rule was published in the August Colony News for member comment. There were no comments submitted for board review.
Is there a second? Second. Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 7-0. Amy?
This one is about the dumpster rule, a very necessary item for people that are moving in and remodeling their house before or while they're living there. I move to adopt Article number 5.20.1, Dumpster Rule as submitted. This rule was published in the August Colony News for member comment, and there were no comments submitted for the board.
Is there a second? Second. Any conversation, any discussion?
Only one. One comment that came up when we were looking at this is that there are some driveways that are so short you cannot get one of these big dumpsters in them. In that case, you should go to the office and request a variance that would allow you to park a bigger dumpster on the street if you have no other place to park it, if it won't go in your driveway.
That's true.
Okay. Anything else on discussion? Hearing none, all those in favor signify 7-0. Amy?
And the final one is the giveaway and free item rule change that was put through. And due to the numerous comments received from colonists regarding this rule change, I make a motion to table this Article 5.10.1 rule recommendation for the time being.
Is there a second? There is no discussion. Any discussion? And Glenn?
Why can we not decide on this? I don't understand it. We have 35 or 40 people have said they don't like this idea. We've not had one person. Well, I think maybe some residents said we don't like all this stuff in the street, but I don't know why we have to table this. Can we make that kind of a decision?
I think the reason we need to go back and discuss it is there may be some parts of it that we keep and others that we change or eliminate, and we haven't had that discussion.
Jim Nash?
Yeah, I'm going to support the tabling of the item, but I'd like to see some more information come back to us as to why this is even needed. You know, again, maybe that's been done, and this is my first meeting back, so I don't know, but I'd like to know, you know, first of all, is it a problem? Is it necessary to have a rule? You know, and what's the benefit to the community of having it?
And clearly, those are along the lines that we've had. Why are we just putting something else in that hasn't been a problem? So we need to take a look at it again. Dell?
Yeah, I think in the past, we've had people put a sofa out there and just sits there or something, you know, those kind of things and everything. But I think when it comes down to boxes that come and go constantly and fruit, that people have extra grapefruit or something, you know, I don't have a problem with that. So maybe when we rewrite this thing, we can do a better job.
Okay. All right, so motion's been made to table. Any other discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. Okay, 7-0. No, 6 abstain. No, 1 no. Okay. All right, we're under new business now. Dell?
Oh dear, let me see. Mike, it's a resignation from Access Control and Safety Committee. Mike Nunez is stepping down. So,
Okay.
make a motion to accept his resignation.
Been a motion to accept the resignation
second.
there? Is there a second? Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 7-0. Glenn?
Yeah, we have a resignation from the Landscape Committee. Miss Cindy Wiles, she spent 4 years of service to our community, and the board and the LAC wanted to say thank you for your service to our community.
You want to move to accept it?
I move to accept her resignation.
Second.
All right, moved in second. Any discussion? Hearing none? Yeah, Jim Nash?
Question, just, what if we don't accept the resignation?
We haven't faced that yet.
We say no, you got to stay on the committee.
Just don't try to step down because you would hear the no's right there. Okay.
She
All
comes to your committee.
Okay, all those in favor signify by raising your hand. 7-0. Amy?
Sadly, I need to move that we accept the resignation of Don Wardell from the Rules and Regulations Committee. And I would like to thank him for his years of service.
Is there a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor signify by raising your hand. 7-0. Thank you. Amy, I think we have a new business thing here for you.
Yes.
Go ahead.
Yes. I move to approve the proposed architectural rule go out for 30-day member comment in the December 2021 Colony News as submitted.
And what is basically well, let's get a second to that. Is there a second?
Second.
All right, Amy, go ahead.
The reason that they're asking for the change, the cutoff date for submitting the applications has been Friday, and that makes it next to impossible for the Architectural Committee to get their booklet in time to read it before the meeting on Tuesday. So they've asked to move it to the cutoff date from Friday to Thursday at 4 p.m. so that then they can, on Friday, put the books together and get them to the Architectural Committee.
All right, any other discussion? Bruce?
As a former member of that committee, that is absolutely necessary. Most people will be surprised how many applications come through at a single time. And if you get them on Monday or sometimes Tuesday morning, it's impossible to get through them all before you get to the meeting.
Okay, any other comments? Hearing none, all those in favor of this proposal signify by raising your hand. 7-0. Thank you very, very much. We're very, very close to the end, and the old saying that the mind can absorb what the tail can endure. is very apropos after almost 2 hours, probably the longest meeting we've had in 2 years. That should bring joy to some and tears from others. But I want to thank Jean Franciscos with Applied Insurance Agency for providing the refreshments and the raffle at this time. Has everybody received a raffle ticket when you walked in? Is there anybody that doesn't have? If you don't have a raffle ticket, raise your hand. Kara will come around, give you one. While we're doing that, and before we actually have the raffle, I want to, again, remind everybody of November 4th at 1 o'clock, a 1-hour single subject relating to the golf course. The other one is, you'll remember that when we opened up after COVID, we had a wonderful day in here. We had an evening meeting. We had an afternoon where you could come down at 4 o'clock and enjoy a cocktail at the HOA expense, followed by an open session, followed after that by food and a wonderful dance. In November, we're going to have a rerun. It will be a night meeting at 5 o'clock. You are invited to come at 4 o'clock, sit around the tables, enjoy your neighbors, enjoy a cocktail on us. You'll have an hour to do so. We're only going to give you one, so you're still semi-comatose here when we meet. Anyway, that'll be at 4. The open session will start at 5. At the end of that meeting, there'll be good refreshments, not that today isn't, but there'll be more substantial refreshments, followed by a group that'll be coming in and providing dancing for the next couple of hours. So please come down. Those of you watching, come down. Let's make it a sellout again, as we did a couple of weeks ago. So without further, I'm going to call, actually what I'll do is I'm going to call for the adjournment, and then I'll read the tickets so I have everybody's attention. May I have a motion? Motion to adjourn, a second. All those in favor here? Okay, here's your number. We'll do what we did before. Everybody stand up. I'll read the number. When your numbers are no longer involved, go ahead and sit down. And the last person standing will get the bill for today's refreshments. You what? You didn't throw it in there. Okay.
Both of them in.
Okay, here we go. First number is 9. Second number is 8. Third number is 1, 9810. People ought to begin to be sitting down now. 98107. No, you can't win. Right up here. All right, so here it is. 981070. Come on up here. Come on up here. Thank you for coming. Enjoy the refreshments out there. Give those to Kimberly, will you? Those are the